Welcome to today's program, How to Conquer Student Debt, the Haidet Story, sponsored by ASDA's Career Compass and Heartland Dental. I'm Brooke Kachuris, ASDA's Membership Development Specialist here at the Central Office in Chicago. Career Compass is a resource to help prepare you for graduation and transition into your first steps in your career path. ASDA is excited to work with experts in the field such as Heartland Dental to develop new programs and resources for you. Visit Career Compass to explore all it has to offer. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters, Drs. Whitney and Drew Haidet.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, I'm Drew.
And I'm Whitney.
Thank you for tuning in to our webinar. Hopefully we can provide you with some useful information in order to be successful in your careers and pay off your student loans that are troubling so many of us that went through dental school.
So again, like I said, I'm Dr. Whitney Haidet. I grew up in a small town north of Tampa. It's called Wesley Chapel, Florida. And then I went into University of Florida for my undergrad, where I got my degree in food science and human nutrition. I then went on to Nova Southeastern University, which is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and now we currently live in Naples, also in Florida.
I'm Drew Haidet. I grew up in Melbourne, Florida. I went to UF as well, and then I also went to Nova Southeastern, so we have clearly a similar path here. And now we are both in Naples, Florida, and I've been here 5 years, and I think you've been here four now. So it's a great place to work, and we really enjoy being here. Okay, a little bit about us. We got married last year in May. We have lived in Naples, as we said, for years before that. We both work in separate offices, and I work further south in downtown Naples, and Whitney is further north in Estero, and we live kind of in the middle. So it works out really well. We don't compete over patients, which is probably good. And the whole path for us as dentists and a couple and everything has been great.
So those are our fur children. That's Howie and Blue Cat. Blue is the orange one. So obviously we have a theme here, orange and blue, because we are diehard Gator fans.
Okay, so we're here to talk about how to pay off your student loans, which is obviously a concern for many people going through dental school, medical professions, any sort of collegiate program at all. As you can see in our slide here, we have some statistics that are scary and intimidating with large numbers and things that nobody really wants to think about. On my little blurb there, there's a large number of graduates with a large number of dollars being owed back to the government. So that can be something that can be a strong deterrent from beginning your career and focusing on what's really important, and instead you're in panic because of how much money you owe.
So only 20% of dental student graduates from the class of 2017 had less than $100,000 in student loans, which means the majority of us had more than $100,000. And they say on average it was actually around $287,000 in student loan debt once they had graduated their dental school careers.
And from what the trends have been in the recent past, it's hard to believe that these numbers are going to go down. You can only assume that they're going to go up, which is unfortunate for anyone wanting to be a part of our profession. But at the same time, we can validate, and almost any dentist can, that it's all worth it. It's kind of part of how it works, and you're investing in yourself.
And what better investment? So here we see that the student loan percentage right now, the interest rate, so the direct unsubsidized loans is at 6.595%, and the direct plus loans are at 7.59 right now. I know when I graduated in 2014, it was actually higher than this for both the unsubsidized loans and the direct plus loans. So great news is you guys are a little bit better off by having those a little lower, but still I know it's a scary number to see such high percentages there.
Even though those numbers have gone down, in just a simple comparison, you're never going to find an interest rate that high on even a mortgage. It's just not how it is. Any sort of loan that you're going to take other than this is usually going to be less, which is unfortunate, but it is kind of how it is.
So as you can see here, for mortgages, the average interest rate is 4.8. The great news is there is something called a doctor loan for when you apply for a mortgage for your first house, and you guys will all qualify for that just because you are a dentist. So make sure that you look out for that when you do go to buy your first house. And we're with SunTrust, and they provided something called a doctor loan. So it's no money down, and it's a really great thing, and your interest rate is lower than most people.
So there's several banks that offer that. SunTrust is the one we chose. We would encourage any sort of aspiring dentists, doctors, or ones that are already in practice to look into these options. It's a really neat idea that we weren't aware of, and we learned from friends, thank goodness, and a financial advisor. You're never going to find something else like that. You pay nothing down, and you have no PMI, which is something that is usually an insurance percentage that you pay when you do not have money down, and it's a coverage for the mortgage company. So due to your career and your almost guaranteed success, you're able to focus your money on your loans instead of a new home that everyone wants to buy.
So if you have any advantages that you can take for being a dentist, if there's anything we can do, then you want to take them. So if that's something that you're interested in, you really want to make sure that you're talking to different banks to see if they offer the doctor loan for you guys.
One of the other main points that we learned, and we'll kind of emphasize this as the slides go on, is that you'll see the recurring trend that all these interest rates are lower, as we talked about. And because of that, you do not want to pay for these things up front. Your student loans are going to lose more money than a house, than a car, than all of these things just by simple math. The percentages here are never going to equal up to what you're losing in student loans.
And I learned that the hard way because I wanted to pay for my car, and thankfully my husband let me know that we aren't going to talk to the car salesman anymore, and he was going to handle it from there, and we weren't going to pay for it right away because our car loan percentage was basically 1% or something ridiculously small, and as I was having student loans interest rates of 8%. So thankfully I married someone really intelligent that let me know that that was not going to happen.
She still ended up with your yellow Jeep.
Thankfully.
Okay, so a little bit more about us. We met at the Florida-Georgia football game, which conveniently is also this weekend.
Go Gators. Kind
of outside of this whole slideshow, I'd say you could probably pay your loans off by betting on the Gators this weekend, but I wouldn't quote that. In 2010, I became Whitney's mentor. That was a program through the school where we had older students that provided guidance for classes and things through the dental school. We started dating my D3 year after I finally convinced her that was a good idea. And then there's a neat picture there of me putting her at her graduation.
So then we graduated, and then we realized, oh my goodness, between the two of us, we are over $600,000 in combined debt.
I think it was even higher than that.
Yeah, I think it was more like 700,000. That's probably true. It sounds better to say 600,000.
Either way, we look like that little boy in the picture.
I think we probably cried. And then we realized, oh, now it's not government money anymore. It's always fake, like this fake money, and these loans are really fun when we were in school because we would just get a paycheck of like 30 grand in the beginning of the semester. And then you realize, oh no, now we aren't getting any more paychecks from the government anymore. We actually have to pay them at this point. And that became a little scary.
So before we get into this, another thing that we want to make sure everyone's aware of is that this is in no way is encouraging students to not take loans. Loans, even though the percentages are high and all those things, I think that's an important point, that the loans are necessary. You need to be able to get through your schooling without the stress of having to worry about an income. It just isn't possible. And for those that are in school and those things, it's not worth it. Yes, these loans are intimidating, and that will be the recurring trend in this presentation, but at the same time, If we had to go back, we would still do the same thing again. It's just a must, and we hope that the government continues to be able to fund schooling of this type because it's important, and the trend is showing, I believe they will.
And I think something we forgot to say in our timeline of being with each other and meeting each other and getting married back in 2017 is that when we both graduated from Nova, we immediately took jobs and positions with Heartland Dental. And Drew started with Heartland back in 2013 in the fall, and I started with Heartland when I graduated in 2014, in the summer. So we both were able to take positions over in this Naples area.
So our action plan, as you can see here in the slide, paid fast is obviously the way to handle this. Kind of to go back to what we talked about again, which is the recurring trend, is that these loans are going to be what's losing you the most money.
And hair and sleep.
Yeah. So because of that, it needs to be a clearly outlined plan of how you're going to tackle this.
And honestly, we felt really guilty spending money on anything else when we knew we had the weight on our shoulders of having all of this $700,000 of unpaid student loan debt. We decided that it really wasn't worth feeling guilty over spending money on fun things when we had this. So we knew that the sooner we were able to pay off our student loans, the happier we were going to be, because the less stressed we were going to be and the less we had to think about something like that. So we decided that we were going to go full steam ahead and tackle our student loans.
We did the math at one point, and I think we were losing over $40 a day.
Oh, it was more than that. It was really, really not good.
It was a high number, and if you figure how quickly that adds up and what you can do with that money, it's going to motivate you quickly to want to pay these off, and it's really the only way to go.
So when we first got started, I know we said we wanted to pay them fast and we were full steam ahead, but we also had to be smart because we knew that you're a starting dentist. It's not like you're just rolling in the dough right when you walk out the door. You're creating your patient base, you're finding your rhythm, you're really figuring out who you are, not as a dental student anymore, but now as the doctor of the practice. And believe me, that first week when everyone starts calling you doctor, you're like looking around like, you're talking to me? Oh, I guess I'm the boss now. It's a very strange situation, but it's amazing. And so we decided that we were going to start with something called Pay As You Earn. And that was a program, at least it was back in our day. And that was going to be that we had less of a monthly bill. So I believe when I first got started, it was like $300 a month that was going to go to my student loans. And for me, that felt very comfortable. I knew I could handle spending $300 on my student loans, but at the same time, I knew that most of that $300 was just to straight interest, and not very much was going to the principal. So although it felt comfortable and it really fit in my budget well, I wasn't actually tackling that big number that we were looking at every day.
A common theme that's discussed through financial advisors and even through the schools while you're finishing your senior year is the fact that as you're in the pay-as-you-earn program, if you make it to a certain point, and I don't want to say a number because I don't remember exactly.
I think it's 20 years.
That the rest of your balance will be paid off. There's a lot of catches to that, and again, this is kind of our opinions, but our method has worked to this point. The pay-as-you-earn program, in my opinion, is only beneficial if you're in public health or in some field outside of either private practice or a DSO.
But the problem to us too was that was still 20 years, and we didn't want to think about this problem for 20 years. We really had a goal of a 5-year goal to be able to pay off our student loans. So to us, the extra 15 years of thinking about student loans was really not something that we were interested in.
An important factor when you're considering something like that is to figure out the extra interest that you're going to be paying by waiting as long as you are, because it's accruing and your principal is increasing greatly. And at the same time, there is an important factor that when your remaining principal is paid off at the end of 20 years, that is taxed as though you received that much money in income that year. So those are all factors that are involved, and I'm not saying that plan isn't best for everyone. I'm sure there are certain situations where it is, but there are some catches in the sense that it's not the perfect plan because it looks as though you're going to pay a small amount for a long time and then be forgiven. Sometimes that can be something that needs to be looked into a little more deeply.
And our financial advisor did a really great thing for us where he showed us a chart of how much money we had taken out in student loans and then what that would look like in 20 years based off of the accrued interest. And that number frightened us dearly. And so we decided that that was just not going to be what we decided to do.
Sure.
And then once we started getting into our practices, and I was lucky enough and grateful that Drew was a year older, which means one more year of experience and one more year of patience and money being able to be in the bank, we started paying off those loans at a higher rate. So we started paying off chunks at a time. So anytime that we would get our quarterly bonuses from Heartland, instead of seeing that money as something we could use or spend, that would immediately go to our student loans and it would go straight to the principal because we had already satisfied our monthly payment. And so anytime that you make a payment over your monthly payment, it goes straight to your principal, which was phenomenal because then there went 20 grand off of the student loans. And when you do that quarter after quarter, that really helps a lot.
It's the only way to do it. It really is, because any other method is going to drag it out, and you just really need to budget it out so that you are planning towards those things. And it's really just the only way to do it.
Another thing is, I don't know if this is on the next slide. You can hear our cat. That's Blue Cat in the background. So it's not. So what we also realized, and this was more my situation than it was for Drew's situation, but not only did I have the unsubsidized loans, but I also had Grad Plus loans, and all of my loans that I was taking out were at different percentages. So sometimes my loans were, some of them were at 8.6 down to 5.2, but they all like changed depending on what semester I was receiving that money. So I downloaded the myfedloan.org app on my phone, and Drew used.
I used Great Lakes.
So I don't know why we had different apps that worked for us, but for mine was myfedloan.org, and I actually would go onto the website and specify which loan I was wanting to pay that extra payment towards. Because if you don't do that and you just say, I want to put another $2,000 towards my loans, it would evenly distribute that into the 8 semesters worth of loans or like that. And that's not something I wanted to do because I didn't want to pay my loans that were at 5.2% at the same rate that I was paying my 8.6. So I would tackle loans at I would like to keep my eye on the prize for one loan at a time. So my first one was like the 8.6 and then the 8.2s and so on and so forth, just to make sure that I don't want to be paying, I want to be paying those higher interest loans off first because there was no reason to keep them all there.
I think it's important to talk to the fact that the balances within those loans are irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the interest rate, because
Correct.
a dollar is a dollar. Even if you have a smaller amount in the higher interest, you still pay those off first, because when you do the math, that's the only thing that matters.
If you have a $10,000 loan at 8.2, you're going to want to pay that off faster than a $1,000 loan at a $50,000 loan
That's
at 5.2, because that 5.2, you guys know math, you guys are smart. But basically you're wanting to spend, you're wanting to take care of your highest interest no matter what that dollar amount next to it looks like.
Exactly.
So then once Drew had paid off his student loans, because he did that first, that was
Took me roughly 3 years.
3 years after he
Yes.
graduated, which is phenomenal. It was down to me and my loans that were left over. And so I decided that we were at a point in our careers that we could afford a higher monthly payment. And so we decided that we were going to refinance. And so we refinanced about 2 years into 2.5 years after I graduated to an interest rate that was locked in at 5.2%. And that was lower than all of my loans that I had taken from school. The catch there is that I had a monthly bill, an auto draft of $5,200 a month. So I wasn't willing to do that until I felt very confident and comfortable that I was able to spend $5,200 a month automatically drafted from my account. And again, I had the luxury of, if anything ever was scary, I had my husband here to help me out. But luckily, with our careers with Heartland and my office, I felt very comfortable and positive that I was going to be able to spend that $5,200 a month on our student loans.
Was there a couple different companies that you applied with?
Yeah. There's, in all honesty, there's a couple different companies that have student loan forgiveness programs or refinancing programs, and they change on the daily of who's the best and what interest rates they're willing to give and things like that. So I don't even want to throw out who I use, because it's probably not good anymore or better than someone else, and so it's really not even worth it. I applied to 3 different banks that do the refinancing to make sure that I was getting the best interest rate.
The important
so
point. It's just that you applied to multiple.
Yeah, and so a lot of paperwork, but it was super worth it.
Yeah. Okay, so the most important part in all of this, and really what Whitney and I's focus in this whole presentation on it is what you need to do in your office in order to be successful and achieve your goals of paying off these loans in a quick fashion. It's one thing to understand the money and the interest rates and all the things we talked about so far, but you need to be focused 100% on your performance in your office. You need to be focused on a team that surrounds you that's successful and motivated. You need to be focused on relationships and your reputation with patients. You need to put yourself in the chair that the patient is in front of you and make sure that everything you're doing to them is what you would want done to you. It's hard to kind of think about those things when you're in school because you're so focused on how to place gutta percha or do something.
Hold a handpiece in your hand, retract a tongue and a lip and have saliva all at the same time.
And there's a time and a place to focus on those things still in your career. Obviously, when you first come out of school, you have a lot to learn and a lot to practice. But before you get into the technical end, you need to establish a relationship and make sure that the person that you're working with is comfortable with your care, and at the same time that you're comfortable providing the care that you would do it to your own self.
But don't do your own dentistry.
I think it's doable.
That's hard. So I think that's one of the reasons why my husband and I have been able to be really successful within Heartland and just with our own careers, is that we really strive to make sure that we have a happy team culture, we call it. We want to make sure that our team members are happy. It's down from the business assistants, your dental assistants, your hygienists. If they're all happy and having a good time and a good experience, they're going to have all of those feel-good feelings to your patients, and that's ultimately who benefits from it. So the happier you are and nicer you can be and a better boss and leader and doctor you are, the more your team is going to work for you with their blood, sweat, and tears, and all of that's going to pay off in the dental care and the experiences they provide for your patients. And that's really why we got into dentistry. I'm sure everyone says, why are you a dentist? Well, because I want to change people's lives. I want to change their experiences when they say, like, I hate the dentist. Well, I want to show you why you shouldn't hate coming to the dentist. I want to give you a great experience and care so you can go tell your friends and families about me too. That's what we really strive to do every day in our offices. And if we can't do that with our team, they're not going to want to do it to the patients, and then we're all stuck at square one again. So the happier everyone is, the more likely your patients are going to be happy and want to say yes to doing treatment with you as well. So if you have happy team members, you have a happy doctor, you're going to have happy patients, hopefully, and they're going to say yes. And that's one of our philosophies too, is just making sure that we're always trying to say yes and do the right things for the right reasons, because that's really important.
Sure. And that includes rewarding your team members when their performance is excellent. And that's such an important factor that, again, is sometimes overlooked because you're so focused on what you're trying to learn as a new dentist, and you're trying to master all of the techniques and technology and all the things involved. But you have to remember that these people are an important part of your life at this point, that your team members are crucial, and a lot of the patient's impressions of you actually come from them. It's easy to, when you graduate, kind of get all high and mighty because now you're a dentist and you've accomplished all these goals. but it's important to be able to relate to not only your patients, but your team members as a human. That all kind of leads together into better patient experiences, and it all kind of topples down from there. The whole concept of a practice is, in my opinion, based on relationships with the people that come through. Everyone that comes to the building should have some sort of influence that's in a positive way. And that all leads to more dentistry to do equals more dollars, as the last slide, or the sentence on the slide is. Now, don't get that wrong. That doesn't mean that you turn into a situation where that's your focus. It all comes down from the top, as we said here. When you're doing the other things, all of the other dentistry and production just kind of comes along with it.
Yeah, so something we say, or I've said before, is production is just the result of good patient care. If your focus is on production, then you're not going to be doing the right things for the right reasons, and you can't do that. But production is just the result of making sure that your patients are happy, you're providing quality dental care, you're really morally and ethically focused on taking care of them. Because if you lead with your heart and with wanting to take care of them to the highest standard, then all of that will just come.
Absolutely.
The other thing is you spend more time at the dental office than you do at the house. Okay, so now Blue wants to say hi. This is his part because we don't get to see him as often. But you do. We spend more time, okay, Blue, with our team members. And so you want to make sure that it's a happy place, because if you're there all day, you're going to want to be in a good mood, and you don't want to come home all upset. You want to make sure that you're creating a good culture and a good team atmosphere.
As your reputation increases from being in a practice or in an area for a longer and longer time, your interaction with your team, your interaction with patients is going to become common knowledge. Patients like to speak about that, and those types of patients that come in as new patients that already come in with a positive reputation in mind of the doctor and of the team are going to be your best patients, because then at that point you skip all the hesitation, you skip the fear, you come right in and you can discuss how you can make this person more healthy.
Absolutely.
So these are all the neat things that we've been doing recently. The picture, I guess it's going to be upper left, is us in Hawaii. That's been one of my dream trips for a long time, and Whitney finally allowed me to do that on our first anniversary and her 30th birthday. The one in the middle is from Greece. I'm assuming that's Mykonos. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Greece is an awesome trip. That was our honeymoon, and I recommend anyone to go there. It's an absolute blast. Hawaii again on the right.
Yep.
And then some of our.
So to tell a story on Drew real fast. So we kind of decided that we weren't going to spend a lot of money yet until we had our loans paid off, because we just felt like that was what we wanted to focus on. Like we've been saying, especially seeing that big number of $700,000, we decided that our main focus was going to be our loans, and then we were going to start figuring other things out. And then Drew decided that he wanted a jet ski.
Had to happen.
And so we got one that was used, at least. So that was responsible of him. But that's the middle picture is us on his toy. But again, we live in Naples, Florida. You gotta have something to do on the weekends. It's a really fun thing, and I'm glad that he decided that that's what we were going to get. Picture to the left, the one of us in our scrubs, is our house, the house that we're in right now. We bought that house in 2017, so we bought it about 6 months before we were going to have our student loans paid off, but with the knowledge and knowing that we are going to be able to pay off our student loans in those next 6 months. So we felt really comfortable with that. And again, like Drew was mentioning earlier, we did it with that doctor loan from SunTrust. So we were able to do that with no money down. So in all honesty, the difference between us paying our rent here in Naples compared to the mortgage on the house was pretty much the same. And at least we were building equity and now having a house. So instead of kind of throwing away money with renting, being able to do something that was no money down, we felt really comfortable being able to take care of that.
If you get nothing else out of this presentation, the dentist loan mortgage is the way to go. It's not something that's very widely known, but it's something that's crucial that you bring up in a discussion. It really allows dentists, doctors, whoever, to be able to purchase a home, start earning value on your home without it hindering your ability to pay off your student loans. It's a big deal.
And the other thing I would say too that we touched on a couple times is getting a financial advisor. We've really enjoyed having a financial advisor to be able to bounce ideas off of and kind of refocus ourselves. You know, we bought disability insurance immediately once we graduated because heaven forbid we got disabled pretty quickly, long-term disability, and had all these loans and weren't going to be able to pay for it. So we thought that was a responsible monthly payment to make was through long-term disability. So that's something else that we took care of. And again, that was due to our financial advisor's advice.
Sure.
And then the last, but definitely not least, picture is the one right next to the Scrubs picture is the house that we just purchased, the second house that we just purchased. It's in Gainesville, Florida. So we have a place to go for Gator games. So that's where University of Florida is, and we decided that that was a must because now we can reward ourselves because we paid off our student loan. So we thought that was going to be a really cool thing for us to do.
Absolutely. Okay, this is just kind of a simple guideline showing what we would recommend to newly graduated or even people still in school, and both, is to figure out your budget, figure out how much money is going in and out every month, figure out how much money you want to go in and out every month, and start working on a path towards being able to pay as much of your loans as you can any given month. And that number will continually change as you continue to be more and more successful in your practice.
Something that we always talk about are wants versus needs. And again, like we were saying about the jet ski, that was a want, but at that time it was doable. So it became a need. But you know, really figuring out your monthly budget and how much are you spending? Do you really need that Starbucks every day? Or do you want that Starbucks every day? Maybe buying a Keurig would pay itself off, you know, faster time. So just little things like that, which you don't realize how much money you're spending until you start writing it down.
Whitney and I's goal every week is to not spend $1 on a weekday. It's easier said than done, especially when you run out of gas. But if you do something as simple like that, you allow yourself to achieve your goals, still do the things that are fun on the weekends and things of that sort. But it takes away from wasting money on going to McDonald's every other day. And because you'd be surprised how much money you're losing in silly things like that. We pack our lunches. Whitney makes mine, thank goodness. And it's a really simple thing that I think it's
saves lots of money.
Benefited us big time.
Absolutely.
The next thing on the list here is find a great job. That's something that, when did we start applying? Was it still winter before
the end of fall? Yeah, the end of fall of our D4 year.
Yeah, you really should start looking into that before you graduate, well before, so that you have a plan in mind. There are many different options and different things that work for everyone.
Drew and I are planners, so we don't like to just figure things out on a whim. We want to kind of know how things are. I think you can tell that by the fact that we have write down budgets and all of that stuff. But we really wanted to make sure that we were finding a career that we were really happy with in a place that we really wanted to be ahead of time. So I think that we both ended up signing contracts for our jobs in January before we graduated. So even though we didn't graduate till May and didn't start until the middle of June, we had both signed our contracts well in advance.
Even if you aren't as picky about planning as we are, at the same time, you want to be able to have the freedom to experience and learn what the best job is for you. If you wait till after graduation and you desperately need the income to be able to start paying these loans off, you're going to be more likely to settle on a position that isn't as good. Take the time, do the right thing so that you can be able to make a decision in the right amount of time that's what's best for you.
And you're going to want to make sure that you're asking the questions of what does that look like? What does your salary look like? Is that something that's stagnant? Is it based off of commission? Are there bonus structures? Is there profitability? Is there profit sharing? There's a lot of good questions that you should really be asking your future employer to make sure that you are doing something that's right for you. Because just because someone offers you a starting salary of X amount of dollars, that might mean that that's where you're going to stay for the next 5 to 10 years, or there's no chance of bonusing or things like that. So, shiny objects aren't always the way to go. Really do your due diligence and make sure that you're asking all those right questions.
And then the last point on this slide is kind of reiterating what we've already spoken about. Work on your leadership skills, work on your treatment planning, make sure that when you speak to a patient and meet them for the first time that you're confident in what you're speaking about. That's your responsibility as a doctor, and that's what you would want if you were in the chair. If you're hesitating because you're uncomfortable with what you're speaking about to the patient, there's something wrong there, and there's nothing wrong with that in the sense that you need to know at that moment, but make sure you're only providing care for what you're capable and willing to do.
And there's no problem, especially when you're first starting out. If you have a complex case, you don't have to diagnose right then and there. You can let them know that you need to take study models and you need some time, and reaching out to mentors in your area or friends that you trust that are great doctors and dentists to be able to decide what truly is the best route or best care for that patient, making sure that you're giving them everything that they deserve and not just making things up because you don't know, because that's not acceptable in any way.
Absolutely. And on top of that, no one's going to be perfect. There's going to be things that happen in practice that go outside of what you hoped for. The key point that both of us have learned and thrived upon is the fact that when those things happen, you do whatever it takes to make it right, whatever it takes. That doesn't mean admitting fault or anything like that. That's not really what I'm getting at. But you
make it better.
Make this person a priority so that you've provided them with the health care that they deserve.
Absolutely. Okay, so that was basically what you could do now while you're in dental school. Those are some topics that you can take care of, but what you can do later. So what can you do after you've graduated? And again, like we've already said, don't spend what you don't have. There's no reason to spend money that's not in your bank account now because you think you're a doctor. You earned having a Maserati and a mansion and a boat and an RV. I don't know, whatever you want, an airplane. You don't have that type of money now. You will get there one day, but if you have that mentality that you just want to spend all of these things because you're this new dentist, you're not going to have you're not going to have those lifelong goals and that career that you and life that you really truly want, because you're going to have kind of put yourself into a really deep hole way too soon, and it's not going to be great. So just don't spend money that you don't have. There's no reason to.
Any bonuses should go straight to loans. And just to reiterate what she just said, I know it seems frustrating kind of throwing money away towards this kind of invisible loan, but the quicker you do that, the more financially stable you're going to be later in life.
We just pretended we didn't have it. So every quarter when our quarterly bonus checks would come through, we pretended it didn't even come, and it would go straight to our principal because we had already made our monthly payments that month.
Make sure you're paying off the highest interest loans first, as we said before, and there's no reason to wait. You should start doing it as soon as you graduate.
Well, you don't have a job as soon as you graduate. Maybe your graduation present money can start going towards it. But the second you get your paycheck.
Maybe they need a jet ski.
They don't need a jet ski. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for listening to us. We really appreciate it.
Feel free to email us with any questions. We'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you for participating in tonight's program. I would like to thank our speakers, Drs. Whitney and Drew Haidet with Heartland Dental, for presenting for us. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night.
Take care.